boys and girls, how we doing? Welcome to Moog's Wednesday Hobby Workshop. Are we ready to watch some paint dry? Live and in Technicolor. Who we got in the chat? Mick the Machine, Salastar, I see you. Sarcastic Monkey, I saw you earlier. Anyone else there? Oh, the Stream Elements bot is running. Yay! Oh, Sarcastic Monkey's gone. Ah, it's alright. Quality over quantity, always. Right, let's get the show on the road, shall we? Heresy, 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 heresy! If you're new here, don't expect quality. This is kind of how I roll. Very low production values. You will see my hands, but apparently that's the Games Workshop standard these days. Hands. Just hands, no faces. Can't have any personalities. That'd be bad. So at least, you know, I'm on a par with Games Workshop already, you know, just for the fact that I've got hands and shot and nothing else. Right, okay. The airbrush is primed. Blip, 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 blip. Yep, okay. Let's just make sure everything's that's seized a little bit. Ooh, one moment. Yeah, so this is how I roll. Don't test anything before you go on the live stream. That would be professional or something. Can't have that. I'll be letting the fans down then. Right. Okay. So the needle got a little bit stuck there. So I think we're cooking on gas now. So let's get on with it. Right. Okay. So I have in my hands some AdMech Kastelan robots that I painted way back in the dawn time when I got back into the hobby in 2020, when an awful lot of other people got back into the hobby. So some sort of worldwide event. You know, they're all right. I was quite happy with them when I did them. There's quite like the screen on this guy. That's quite funky. But this is a custom. Whoop.
Perhaps GW seen your stream and decided that hands-only painting is the way forwards.
Thank you, Mick. Or maybe they seen my face and decided that you know, it's safer for people who have faces for a radio. Yeah. Anyway, I was moderately happy with this. I think it came out quite well. It's quite well weathered, but I'm not interested in this custom Forge World anymore. So my current Forge World of choice is these guys. You might recognise as Metalica. Although very, very grimdark, because Metalica are fairly white. And that was fairly not white. White? Yeah, better example. Off-white. That's definitely reads more as Metalica than the Tech Priest. Right, so we are going to convert them into Metalica. And to start the ball rolling, we are going to get some grey primer on there, I think. Mind including some insight into how transfers work. You mean the chemistry behind it? Because I don't know. Do you mean water slide decals? Like this sort of thing. Yeah? Yeah, okay, yeah, if we get time. This shouldn't take 2 hours, so we'll probably get time. quick shake before because I didn't do that beforehand. So it's wise to give primer a good shake before you spray it anywhere. Well, it's always wise to give all your paints a good shake before you do anything with them, but especially primer. There we go. $10 to 14 hours in. Well, I mean, you spend as long as you want on the miniatures, but and you don't have an airbrush, so. Okay, it's going to take a little bit of fiddling to get the consistency right, and this is something even the pros do, because nobody gets the consistency right first time. Nobody. I will fight anyone that says otherwise, because they are lying. What I'm doing here is just putting my finger over the end there, which blows air back through into the reservoir and mixes the paint up a bit. I put some airbrush flow improver in there, which through some wizardry improves the flow through the airbrush but doesn't actually thin the paint. I'm not entirely sure, so don't ask. Okay. And get the ground done as well. Yeah, you'll notice on this one that is a very non-standard head. I think that was RTLW or something like that. It's a resin print head. How we doing anyway, folks? What's on the hobby table? I'm reliably informed people hobby while they're watching me. Well, listening to me, because you can't sort of watch me and hobby at the same time. That doesn't work. Or maybe you do, I don't know. Maybe you just turn off my prattling and have it on the TV in the background without sound. It's what I'd do, to be fair. Okay, running out of primer now. Give it another quick blast. Elden Ring. Elden Ring. I have not played that game. I have seen it played, and that is enough. I don't object to it. It's looks like a fun game, but it's not really my cup of tea. I appreciate the aesthetic though. It's very grimdark and that pushes all on my buttons. What we going on then? Got going on then. Making up Hammerfall Bunker. I have not played with them. They look fun. Star, Sarcastic Monkey, Microsoul set for transfers. Yes, yes, I would completely agree with that. And those are indeed the things to search for: Microsoul and Microset. I don't use them myself because I don't have any. I'm not even sure where the equivalent. Oh, hang on, here we are. Yeah, I've got the Vallejo equivalent. That's the decal fix, and that was decal softener. But sadly, no more. Apparently, I need some more of that. Maybe I'll get some Microset or Microsoul, whichever that one is. But what those will do, it's all about the chemicals. What those will do is they will help the decal blend into the model and adhere to the contours. You don't really need them, but they do elevate things an awful lot, the look of it. We're getting there with the priming at least. We can start getting some. I'm gonna go with a Zenithal, I think. Lay down some base colours. I think if we can get most of the actual, cause Metalica thankfully is white, which is makes the grey undercoat quite helpful. Right, sometimes I'm blowing paint through this, sometimes I'm blowing air to dry out the paint. Remember last week I was talking about battle damage with the tip of a modelling knife. That's what I've done there, and done some more battle damage with the modelling knife there, and there, and there, and yeah, modelling knife's all you need. The other tip, if you're trying to do melter hits and things like that, you can use a bit of Tamiya. This stuff, and melt around the edges of the hit and sculpt it a bit. So Sarcastic Monkey suggested something earlier on today which completely hadn't occurred to me when magnetising miniatures, and that's to drill a hole slightly smaller than the diameter of your magnet, and then soften the outside of that hole with this, and then push the magnet in. I've always super glued before now, but that seems like a much better way of doing things. So kudos to him. rinse. I don't have to rinse it out too much because the next colour on here will be another off-white. This is where my stream becomes slightly less useful to people who use Citadel paints, because I'm not entirely sure what that would be. Possibly a shabby bone? Maybe? It kind of reminds me of old school Citadel bronze flesh. That's what it reminds me of. Yes, yes, Sarcastic Monkey. Most likely your wife's idea. Yes, well suggested, Sarcastic Monkey's wife. Yeah, I'd say that was kind of bronze flesh adjacent. So I'm sort of half zenithal and half blocking in with this. It's kind of a creamy kind of colour. It's called olive skin, which it's an odd name because I wouldn't have said it looked particularly olive. And then if your skin looked like that, you'd probably want to go and see a doctor. But it lays down some colour there. And it's off-white. Is what we want. When you're painting white, always start from an off-white. Because, as I'm sure I've said before on one of my streams before, white is very rarely white. It's always going to be catching some colour from the surrounding terrain or something like that. It's very rarely pure white. It's Commander Autism, welcome. Try and get this a bit more on camera. The issue is there's a slight curl in the air lead coming to my pistol grip here. So it's kind of hard to manoeuvre. Quite an efficient way of painting with an airbrush. The only problem with it is what you save for the amount of paint you put onto the model this way and coverage you get, you lose when you clean the reservoir out. So the watchword when you're filling an airbrush is less is more. Always put less in than you think you'll need rather than more in than you think you need. If you put more in than you think you need, you'll almost always be right, and that's a waste. Okay. Then a quick rinse. Because again, we're going fairly white adjacent here, so there's still a little slosh of that olive skin in there. Only need the tiniest bit of it, and I'm going to use some Liquitex titanium white ink. Now, whether you've got an airbrush or not, this is a useful thing to have in your arsenal, because you know all those attractive plasma gun glowing effects. This is very useful when it comes to getting a nice bright white down in the recesses between the ridges. And again, kind of going with the zenithal type effect here. A little further away so we get a bit more dispersal. You might notice something that's a little bit hard to see with the under the lights, but there's quite a bit of colour variation in there, but it still reads as white. For those of you without airbrushes, you can absolutely do this by dry brushing. Absolutely. And it's even possible to get as good and even neater a finish than that. Because dry brushes don't do that. For those of you watching in black and white, I just sort of spidered paint all over the miniature there. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It'll look alright in the end. These are going to be grimdark, and grimdark is very forgiving. There's a technique to using an airbrush, and I momentarily forgot the technique there, which is why it's spidered. Technique is always to have air going through the airbrush before you apply any kind of, before you pull back on the trigger to get any kind of paint going through, and always take the paint off before you release. Like that. Otherwise you get spidering and spattering and all sorts of stuff. Hi MRH, how you doing? Right, okay, I think I am, no, I'm not quite done with the airbrush. I have one more thing to do with the airbrush. For that I need it kind of clean, so we're going to give it a good old rinse out. Bit of a wipe round with a grotty microfiber. And I think this goes back to something Sarcastic Monkey asked in the live stream. Say hi, Paul's live stream last night, in fact. And I'm actually going to make use of the technique. So that'll be interesting. Hopefully. If it's not interesting, I'm not really doing my job. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry these guys off. Ordinarily I'd let them sit, but, you know, time's pressing. Has anyone else missed the days when Moog used to argue with the Google lady when she wouldn't turn the compressor on or off? I don't. It's one of those things that seemed like a good idea at the time, and then promptly wasn't. Yeah, that'll do it. Right. What I'm going to do now. What I kind of want to do is get all the pipes and joints and things blocked in. So I'm going to do that. And for that, I'm going to use. I will get this out of the way in a sec, but I've got a little bit of spraying I need to do first. That's a 0, that'll do. Those who are familiar with the channel will know what I'm reaching for and what I'm waving around now. Maybe. Old faithful Garagax suet. It's good and grimy. It's good for your metals. It's good for your pipe work. It's good for what ails you. Trying to be a little bit neat, but again, with it being grimdark, we're not overly worried because these bits between his legs, his leg joints and things, and around the pipes and things will be oily and greasy. So a little bit of collateral damage like that, not really going to matter. In fact, it may even add to the effect. Love this paint. It's just such a nice, almost it's grimy and it's kind of steampunky and it's all kinds of cool. And I'm going to move it off that, otherwise I'm going to knock it over. Because I'll end up nudging this and there'll be Gyrogex sewer everywhere. Top tip for people who knock over Nuln Oil and things like that, it's going to be less of a problem now because of the reduced size of the wash bottles. The old one being taller, the centre of gravity is obviously a little bit higher and it's a little bit more prone to being knocked over. Top tip if you don't want to avoid knocking over your Nuln Oil is don't put it in anywhere you're going to knock it over. It's really that simple, kids. It does still cost as much. It does. Anyone would think Games Workshop are in the habit of selling paints and miniatures. Rubber triangles also works. But if you don't want to spring for rubber triangles, don't put it somewhere you're going to knock it over. Is there anything else? Yes. Just going to get up under there, where his torso meets his pelvis. I'm not entirely sure why I'm gendering a robot, but it's a thing now. I should be using a much bigger brush for this, but there is the occasional area where you need kind of a small brush to be able to get in there and do things neatly. But for doing things like the big gun on top, you want to reach for a bigger brush. If I've got a serviceable bigger brush, actually, I do need to replace a lot of my brushes now. I think they are getting a little bit ropey. Oh, and this guy, yes, he's got that cool resin head thing going on, hasn't he? So we're gonna get all this good stuff on him there. If you just weren't joining us and you're wondering where I got this head from, I think it was RTLW. I think. However, one thing I will say about RTLW is, and this isn't commentary on their politics at all, they are a Russian company, so I believe they've been experiencing problems getting paid for some reason by people in countries outside Russia. I don't know whether they've resolved those issues or found a workaround, but it is something to consider. And there may also be delivery issues as well. That is a thing. I'm sure if you have access to a 3D printer, there are things available that are very similar to this. I remember thinking at the time when I bought them that I didn't want everyone looking like Baymax. Let's get some Garagax sewer on this guy. Get a bit of a wriggle on as well, because tick tock, tick tock. So once you've got the prep work done like this, the actual it will start to fly. I'll get to a point and then every technique I use from there on in will be like super quick. So I've no real fear that I won't get this done in time, but I am kind of conscious that I want it to look decent at the same time. Which is why I'm painting all these now. And you will see why shortly. When I answer a question that Sarcastic Monkey asked in Say Hi Paul's stream last night. Let's get that off there. There we are. Where would we be if I wasn't in a position to answer questions? Well, I wouldn't be live streaming for a start. I like to be of use to people. That is why I live stream, and it's kind of fun and helps my brain weasels occasionally. Sometimes brain weasels win and I can't stream, which is why occasionally there is no stream on a week. But mostly the brain weasels do not win, and that is mostly down to me live streaming. Because when I live stream, I hobby. It is impetus and drive to hobby. That, and I really like helping people with their hobby stuff as well. I'm not God's gift to painting by any means. I don't know nearly as much as some people, but I have picked up an awful lot over the years, and over the past 2 or 3 years I've been back in the hobby, and I'm quite happy to share what I've learned to help other people get as much enjoyment out of the hobby as I do, and I think generally that's a healthy attitude to have. You'll see an awful lot of people online, sadly, who are more than happy to tear people down for what they don't know about the hobby or painting or whatever, and nothing, I was going to say nothing makes me more angry. There's plenty of things make me more angry, but it does annoy me. It really does. Right. Is there anything else on there that I could paint with a small paintbrush? Maybe get that Vox grill there. Oh, you'll find out. You will find out, Mr. Monkey. You will find out. Right. I'm going to do a bad thing now. You shouldn't really do this. But I've got contrast paint drying on these, and I kind of want it to dry faster. Not a good idea, really, to take a hairdryer to contrast paint, because it changes the way it dries, and it ends up looking a little glossier than normal. But considering the next step we're about to do, that doesn't really bother me. It is far more important that everything is dry, because we're about to employ the airbrush again, and we're about to apply some gloss varnish. Give it a good old shake. Go. So, a few drops of that in the airbrush. This will need a proper good clean out afterwards. Now the real old hands to my channel will know exactly where I'm going with this, hopefully, if you've been paying attention. Newer people might be going, what the heck is he doing? He's not finished those miniatures, why is he varnishing them? Hopefully Monkey will be going, ah, that question. I'm going to lay it on too thick. You do kind of want to get it a little bit into the crevices.
Thank you for using the hairdryer. My headache really likes the sound and the effects of ibuprofen.
Thank you very much, and I'm so sorry. It's not like I didn't warn you. I did say I was going to use the hairbrush. Hairbrush? Hairdryer. Right. The question Monkey asked yesterday was, can you paint, or more specifically he said, can you highlight over varnish? And the answer is yes. And I said that the type of varnish you use, the finish of the varnish, will affect how it grabs paint that you put on top of it. This is true, Monkey. Yes. Right, okay. I'm about to use the hairdryer again, but in deference to the good monkey, and he's a very good monkey because he just tipped me, I'm going to kill the voice audio, the mic audio. So you can listen to the music for a bit and watch the hairdryer move. Hey, I'm quite happy to be considerate for tips. That's how this works. Problem with gloss varnish is you never know quite whether it's dry until you touch it. Yeah, good enough. Right, okay. Yoink yoink. Closey of this. Yeet. And look. Right. AdMech almost correctly identified. I might well be about ready to engage in a little bit of streaking grime. Or I might also be about to engage in a bit of the old rust streaks or oil and grease stain mixture from Moog, which is amazing, and engine grime. I'm actually going to go with these first. I'm going to go with engine grime first, but I'm not going to use it for engine grime. Have I turned everything on? Can you hear me? Yes? Says I can, yeah, right. Says I'm transmitting up, so I'm assuming people can hear me. Till somebody tells me they can't, I will assume that you can hear me. Excellent. Right. I am reaching for... there is a special brush which you can get. It'd be a bit pointless if you couldn't get it. Which is good for this next bit. And I have one somewhere. But it is in a bad way. Is that it? That's it. See how it is in a bad way. That is not a healthy brush. That is a brush that has seen better days. This is a liner. It has long bristles in a thin arrangement. And the purpose of this thing is to... let me just grab some brush soap and see if I can sort this out. Because if I can get it working properly, that'll be better. Right. So that's almost coming to a point. I think that's close enough for government work. Right. But yeah, when these are new, they come to a nice point. So nice long bristles on it, and these are to soak up. Oof. That could have been bad. Forgot I took the lid off that. Don't do that, kids. These are to soak up enamel paints, particularly enamel washes. This is white spirit I'm putting in here. Get a bit of white spirit on there. Dip it in the engine grime. Which will thin it down a bit. The paint that I'm about to apply wouldn't slick over it as well and wouldn't run into all the crevices. That's what I mean about different grab properties. So I just touched that to that rivet spot there, and it's just gone all the way around into the recesses, and this is a very satisfying process. So you get a little line of grease around each of the rivets. Or bolts or whatever they are. Oops, that I didn't quite mean to do. Doesn't matter. Soak it up. Move on. Touch it to the edge of the hole of the panel you're trying to line, and it will run up into the recesses through capillary action and line your panels, which is exactly what you want from a panel liner. This isn't why it's called a liner, by the way. It's just a happy coincidence that you can use it for this sort of thing. The brush. Essentially you want a really nice point and a lot of bristles so you can hold a lot of paint. Already that's starting to pop, I think. This is such fun. This is one of those techniques that's ported over from the scale model community. So people use this on model tanks and airplanes and things. Okay, we didn't, yeah, you see in that recess there, we didn't get quite enough of the gloss varnish, so it's not running quite as well. It's very satisfying. It is very satisfying, and it is something you can only do, as far as I've found, with enamel paints and spirit and mineral spirits. Acrylics just don't run the same way. And it will trace the outline of raised objects as well, which is super cool. Again, through that capillary action. So you can get it on the rivets, raised rivets as well as sunken ones, and it'll wash around it. If there was no gloss varnish on this, the other thing that would happen is you would get an awful lot of staining around the where you apply the so again though, I mean, there wasn't quite enough gloss varnish around the collar there, so you get a little bit of draw up and staining. The gloss varnish helps prevent that. Pew. See from that spot that trickled down on there, that's filled in all around the edge of that head enclosure. So yeah, this has come over from scale modelling and Gundam community as well. Gunpla, they use it an awful lot. This works just as well on marines or anything that's got lots of panels on it. Yeah, I think you ought to give it a go. Yeah, give it a go. See what you think. I think you'll find it very satisfying. Oops. Yeah, I mean, you occasionally get a little bit of staining, but again, we're going for a grimdark look here, so it doesn't really matter. AK do some dedicated panel liner, or it might be a Meg, one or the other. Mainly used for tanks and things, but this stuff works just as well with a little bit of extra mineral spirit. See, this has got little raised rivets on it as well. And if you've got the consistency right, you can just pop this stuff on the top and it'll just pop itself around the raised rivets. You can get acrylic to do that, but not quite as well. So this is when any other painter would do a montage or a cutaway or something like that. But you get to watch this in all its riveting glory. Riveting, get it? Because I'm colouring in the rivets. Okay, just spotted what I should be doing there. That's a bit of mechanism there, so I'm going to throw a bit more of that down, get some actual coverage on it, because I think I'll be going over that in a metallic paint anyway. Looks almost nicely outlined. Get that in there. Get that in there. On to the next. But you can see what effect that's had. It just looks so much better. Maybe it doesn't, I don't know. Maybe I've wrecked it. Who knows? I think it looks okay, and that's the main thing. Ooh, did I get its crotch rivets? I don't think I got its crotch rivets. Crotch rivets, it's a technical term for rivets on the crotch codpiece. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Crotch rivet, by staggering coincidence, was also the name of my goblin on World of Warcraft. Hey Chris, welcome, welcome. Gosh, if you just arrived, that was a weird time to arrive. Why am I talking about crotch rivets? Made sense at the time. That's why. Oh. Okay, I'm not going to wipe that off. I'm just going to let that run. Because it adds colour and interest. This is where you encounter a little bit of a problem because the model was pre-painted. I didn't strip the model before repainting it. So there's a little bit of a little bit too much paint on the miniature. Yeah, my crotch rivet's my business. That's the way forward. For those of you just joining us, I am applying Moog Engine Grime, which I'm not going to tip too far because it's full, over, sorry, Moog Engine Grime and a little bit of Mineral Spirit over gloss varnish, which is why it's running into all the recesses. The other slight disadvantage to using enamels is they do take a little bit longer to dry. But that's why we have hairdryers in this world. Well, no, we have hairdryers in this world to dry hair, primarily. However, they are also useful for such diverse tasks as drying paint on miniatures when you are trying to do things in a hurry. An almost fanatical devotion to the Pope and... oh, I'll come in again. Maybe didn't want to start doing that yet. Never mind. Never mind, I make the mistake so you don't have to. And it's nothing we can't address later. Wipe off with a finger. Okay. Running out of things to panel line, I think, which is a good problem to have. In case you weren't with us when I mentioned it last, this custom head is from ArtLW, I believe. And as previously said, they are a Russian company, and I believe they've been experiencing problems getting paid because for some reason we won't dwell on, none of the worldwide banks would deal with Russia. I think we're almost at the point where we can move on to the next bit. So I'm just going to give that a quick once over with a lens cloth if I can find one. I don't know what I did with that. So the problem, we put things down and my hobby desk is every bit as chaotic as you might imagine from the way I paint. You put things down and then things vanish. But I can use this, which is microfiber and won't leave lint everywhere. So I'm just going to give that a quick dab on the raised areas, which will get some of the paint off. Don't want to dab it too hard because it will start soaking things out of rivet holes and everything. Oops, I forgot to do that. I mean, it's already looking halfway weathered as it is, so, you know, job done. Let's give that a quick wipe. Get the hairbrush out. Hairbrush, this thing, hairdryer. turn off the microwave phone computer thing sound, so that I can try miniatures and not kill Sarcastic Monkey, because he tips me. I don't want to kill him. And back in the room. Right. I need... That'll do. That's a number 4. That's a number 4 that is shagged. It's a number 1, but it's wolf bristle. I'm not using that for contrast paints. See, this is me. You get a real sort of no frills, bearded idiot painting kind of experience watching me. And I must be doing something right with it, because you keep coming back. I mean, it's either that or Stockholm Syndrome. I can't roll out Stockholm Syndrome, actually. Right. I may or may not have to go over this with matte varnish. We will see. Right, so this is the... Oh, no, we're all right. Coverage isn't spectacular, but it'll do. So we're just getting this blocked in with Garagak Sewer. Doesn't need to look neat. Because we're going to be dry brushing over it. Now, what I'd ordinarily do if I was grimdarking is go full on rust and stuff, but we're talking about the Cult Mechanicus, and they revere the machine god, and if anyone's going to look after their machines, it's probably the Cult Mechanicus. So we're going to be going easy on the rust. I mean, there'll be some, inevitably. Because rust is one of those things you can't really avoid. And I don't know whether I told you this before, but my... the basing scheme for my AdMech and my knights, oddly enough, is the surface of Metalica, which is all metals and oxides and things. So you're gonna get some rust, even if it's not this and not the robot actually rusting. You're gonna get some rust, and you're gonna get some copper oxide and all sorts of other stuff on there. So it's not going to be pristine. I have pigments and things for that. Which if I get time... Oh, I was going to show... right, yes. Remind me, monkey. And we have... we have half an hour. I'm just going to block this in. And then I will show you how to use... because you were confused about wet water slide decals, weren't you? Mainly because they look nothing like a water slide. It's a horrendous case of false advertising. Yeah, Garagax Sewer has become my go-to for base coating anything that's going to be like metal, or particularly aged metal, or wood or leather. Nice deep, what would you call this? Burnt umber. There we are, that's what it is. So if you're going from classically named paints, that's what you'd go for a similar look to this. Burnt umber. Don't worry, you can do that. I can do that next week. I can. That is a thing that I can do. However, if I can do it this week, I would like to try. Like I say, using a bigger brush for blocking in bigger areas. If I did this with the 1 or the 0 I was using earlier, it would take me all day. Do not be afraid of big brushes on little miniatures. They do make blocking in so much easier because they just hold loads of paint. You're not continually going back to your paint pot to get more paint. You just get so much more coverage out of it. And as long as they come to a reasonable point, you can even do quite good detail with them. And they're quite good, quite precise. Once we've got this on, we're going to do and on the other miniature. I'm just going to do that as well. Shouldn't take too long. I'm going to do a little bit of stippling. do a little bit of stippling with this, which is a fair approximation for the rust-resistant paint primer that you would find on tanks. I'm not entirely sure why they particularly indicated that it was German, because well, everyone used a similar sort of anti-rust layer, so including the Germans. Let's get it on there, because it's contrast paint, it'll sort itself out. Oh, contrast paint. It is a fantastic product. I think I perhaps lean on it a little bit too much, but at the end of the day, why make my life difficult? Any more difficult than it already is. I could absolutely use standard paints and shade it and highlight it to get a similar sort of effect, but why do that when I can base coat with something that does at least half the work for me? At least. I don't get any extra points for taking the difficult route to painting. Nobody does. Unless they're entering a painting competition. You'll get people out there and still that will say, "Oh, but contrast paint's cheating." But is it really? No, it's not. It's not cheating. Cheating would imply it gives you some sort of advantage over somebody else. No. It just makes life so much easier. And who doesn't want an easy life at the end of the day? I know I do. All about the easy life. All I want to do at the end of the day is bang out a decent looking miniature that will look good on the table until I get around to adding a bit more detail to it. Because newsflash, folks, if you get the base colours onto your miniature and that's enough to get you playing with it, that's fine. That's all you need to do. your miniature, as I've demonstrated, can sit on the shelf for years and you can still apply paint to it later. One thing I will say though is give it a few blasts with some compressed air, either canned air or out of an airbrush, just to get dust off it. Give it a quick wipe with a duster and blast the dust off it with an airbrush or something before you put any more paint on it, if it's been sat there a while. Because my God, do these things attract dust. If you've ever been to Warhammer World and seen their displays that don't have covers on them, you will know exactly what I mean. Those things are, with thousands of visitors going through there every month, those things are covered, absolutely covered in other people's dead skin. And it's gross. And they need to get the dustbuster out. Seriously, it's gross. Yeah, dead skin. Which is no good. Unless it's Dead Skin Mask, which is a cool song. I always miss a little bit. Right. Okay. Mic off, hairdryer on. Eating. What are you eating? You're not allowed to. It's way too late to be eating. You shouldn't be eating at this hour. You give yourself indigestion. Right. Noticed a few places where there wasn't any paint on the miniature as I was going around drying. So I'm just going to give that a quick blast of a quick dot of paint. Yeah, there as well. There we are. Okie dokie. Right. A little bit of sponge. A little bit of sponge. That's what we need. A little bit of sponge like that. Just like that. And I dropped that. No, I didn't drop that. Okay, we also need tweezers. Like that. You can pick up the sponge like that. Get the hair out of it, because nobody needs that. Yeah, like that. And then we get our eco-friendly dry palette. Don't know why I said it was eco-friendly, it's totally not. And we are going to get a tiny bit of this on there, just a drop like that. Got a sponge like that. Dip it in there. Get a quick dab. Get most of the paint off. And we are literally looking for leading edges and areas that might have taken a hit, like around that bit of damage there, and we're just going to dab that on. It's going to look like blood spatter, but this isn't the end effect. I go too heavy on the weathering. It is possible to go overkill. But in fact, that looks quite a lot like blood spatter. It's actually quite cool. Again, edges of panels where it might have considerably taken a few knocks, like the feet there. Probably needs quite a bit around the bottom edges. Dried mango? What's that, your safe word? Oh, that's what you're eating. Yeah, that's alright. See, that's beginning to suggest it's taken a few hits, and there's been some chipping of paint going on. Before I get too into this, I'm actually going to do some work with the decals, like I said I would, because they're good to apply before you do this kind of thing, because then you end up weathering over them, and that brings it into the miniature even more. So I am going to apply some if you work for Games Workshop, this is the time to look away. If you could do that now, yeah. Anyone working for Games Workshop, look away. I mean, you shouldn't have to look away because Games Workshop don't actually make these, but they nonetheless like to sue people who make things that they don't make. So we will err on the side of caution and say, if you work for Games Workshop, look away. These are decals that I have printed out, which are freely available on the online internet thing for Forge World Metalica. Because Games Workshop do not do decals for Forge World Metalica. Right, okay, so we want something about... Marry it up. Yeah, about that, that'll do. Now these aren't quite as easy to work with as proper Games Workshop ones, so there's your trade-off. These need an awful lot more trimming, because on your official decal sheets, the decal, I don't know whether you, no, you probably can't see, but if you look closely at the decal sheets that you've got, you'll see that the decal extends to quite close into the actual design. That's not so on decals that you print yourself. Decal paper you can buy and just use a normal regular inkjet printer to print off the decals, and then you need to give it a good few coats of varnish over the top before you use it. Otherwise, the minute you apply water to it, your design will slough off. Right, okay, there is our decal, which you cannot see because the camera is not focused upon it. I need a little blob of water on the decal, and we're just going to leave that to soak for a few minutes or even a few seconds. Depends. Just push it in there, make sure it's soaking in. And we are actually going to apply a little bit of decal fix, which is little more than diluted PVA glue. Very diluted PVA glue. That brush needs cleaning. A little bit of that on a brush. It's either PVA glue or it's varnish, one or the other. You could definitely do this with varnish, a little bit of black, a little bit of matte varnish. Matte varnish will give it a little bit of purchase. I'll find a bit of pen and a yeah. A bit of a demonstration in a bit. So that's the decal fix going on there. Just wait for that to dry whilst that's getting off there. Come on, do your thing. Right, okay. Now this is not the approved method of applying these, but it works for me, and I suspect it will probably work for other people because, well, it works. Apply it to your finger, like so. Press down, pull away, and you will end up with that on the end of your finger, like so. And you get that, and you roll it onto the miniature. There's an incoming call? No, there isn't. Nobody's calling me. I don't think anyone's calling me. Oh, was that Alexa? Oh. Yeah. And just roll that onto the miniature like that. And you end up with an applied decal, and you can kind of manipulate that a bit with care if it's not quite in the right place whilst it's still drying. with the tip of your craft knife until it is in the right spot. And this is the point where you would apply, I think it's the sole or the set, one or the other, whichever softens the decal, and that'll actually get it adhered to the contours and everything. So not quite straight, is it? There we are. Got to be a little bit careful with the homemade ones because they tend to be a bit more delicate than the shop bought ones. But there we go. Just give it a bit of hand drying. This is not a good idea. It's generally a good idea just to let it dry, air dry. Right. Because then what I can do now is, where's my tweezers? There's my tweezers. Let's get our red. Undercoat red. And I can just go over the top of that. And it just brings it into the miniature a little bit more. Right, okay, so we're done with the red. The next thing we want is something like Rhinox hide, which is like a dark russet. A little bit more red than burnt senna. Sorry, a little bit more red than burnt umber. But still definitely on the brown end of things rather than the red end. We're just going to get a little bit of that, put it on our palette. Okay, there's loads of that. I don't need loads of that. Again, get most of it off. Where you've got the red, just dab on a little bit of brown. That's all right, monkey. And this will be where even the rust resistant undercoat has chipped away. Leaving bare metal beneath, but bare metal that's been exposed for quite a while. This is another one of those techniques that's come over from scale modelers. This sponge stipple technique. Other thing to perhaps consider is that these panels do get replaced, so you don't need weathering everywhere. It's occasionally good to have newer looking panels just to add another level of interest and storytelling to the miniature. I mean, this is taking a hit, so that's clearly not a new panel, but this on here I might leave new. The other thing you can do to add interest and light play is you can get I have no idea whether this will show up on the screen or not. It may not. That's a satin varnish. Possibly I want a satin varnish. Where is my... There it is. Because most of this is gloss. But if you chuck in the odd bit of matte here and there, like a panel here and a panel there, it's good. The odd panel. And you can do the reverse if most of your miniature is matte. Just apply a bit of gloss here and there. It just changes how the light plays on that particular panel just enough to add another little layer of interest as you turn the miniature. So that's just that panel there that I've done in a matte. And I don't know whether this will show up on the camera, but it probably won't. I'm just going to do that knee joint in matte as well. Because as you turn the miniature, it'll catch the light. But if there's something that isn't quite catching the light exactly like everything else, it'll draw attention, create interest, and this is something they did on they do it on the Star Wars models, Star Wars spaceship models that they use in the Mandalorian and well, the films. They use different varnishes and different panels and subtly different colours as well. Clips, yeah. I haven't got any of them, but that's a good call. So I'm just going to do that collar around his neck there in matte. I think we're going to have that as a brand new panel, so we're going to grab that, give him a brush of wipe. And let's not do that. Let's grab the white scarf. So we've got a clean-ish, freshly replaced panel there, which instantly looks different to the one adjacent to it. Little tricks to add a little bit of interest to your miniature. So I mean that's a panel that's new and they've got around to painting it. The other thing you can do is to put a section that's metallic maybe. There we are. Going to need this metallic anyway. For the guns and such, but also for a bit of weathering. So we've got our metallic paint there. And let's pick a leg panel. Let's do that one there. So we'll just do that. Leg panel in metallic. you can get a better finish with metallics if you sort of dab it on rather than wipe it on as you might with an ordinary paint. I tend to do a little bit of both. Go. So that's clearly a panel they've replaced and not got round to painting yet. If I remember my lore correctly, there's a significance to having bare metal on. Maybe that's a Titan Legion thing. I think there's something about bare metal on one of the Titan Legions, or maybe it's an AdMech thing. I don't know, but it's a devotional thing. Okay, I'm just going to grab our tweezers again. Best glue to get rocks, etc. stuck to the base. We'll be starting the base. If you can get it, and I have reason to believe you probably can, because I think he delivers to Europe. This stuff, keep going Cyanix fast drying basing glue. It's not a PVA, it's based on something else, but it acts like PVA, and it's a little bit stronger, a little bit faster drying. Synthetic latex or something. That's what I do use, or a dab of super glue. Seriously, dab of super glue for the big rocks. Right. So again, just grab a little bit of metallic paint, and again, where the darkest bits are, I just want to add a few dabs of that, so we've got bare metal showing through, maybe from recent damage, like there for example. He's got a full-on gouge there. Going a little bit too heavy on this. Okay, some damage on the leg that they've clearly painted over. Underside of that is going to be taking a lot of hits a lot of the time, because it's going to be trudging through muck and such. Give that a good dab around the feet on the feet as well. And we're going to give the dab on the metallic bits on the guns. Oops. New sponge, because we're starting to get red coming through, which is not what we want. Where did that sponge go? A little bit of sponge. New bit of sponge. Stipple that on there as well. And on there. And then you do the same on the other miniature. But I think we're on 10 minutes over, haven't we? Add glue, add rock. You know what? I would super glue the large rocks down first before applying any other sort of light basing material around them. Otherwise, you're trying to super glue things on top of the sand and what have you, and that's not going to work, particularly when it's still wet. So yeah, glue the big rocks down, and then glue and sand and whatever. That makes sense. Right, so I think we're getting there. He's certainly looking a bit more Metalica than he was earlier. Well, that's going to bug me if I don't do something about that. I'm going to spend too long doing this because, again, Thursday is my day in the office, so one of my days in the office, so I have to be up fairly early. So that was just brown sauce, and I'm just going to slap that over that that metal panel, just to give it a bit of colour, a bit of definition. So that's what he's looking like, and I would absolutely hit that up with streak and grime or something at this point, and rust streaks and things. But I think I might do that next week, because we're getting to that point where I need to off to bed. So, thanks for stopping by, folks. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got something useful out of it. I have been Moog's Little Figures, a bearded idiot doing unspeakable things to plastic. Innocent plastic. Innocent, unsuspecting plastic in many cases. I try to do this every week, as most of you who are still watching will know. Yeah, if you're not subscribed, please do so. And all the usual, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, comment, share, all that good stuff. You know what you're doing. Everybody says it. I'm going to say it as well, because, you know, I'm trying to grow the channel. Just for my own amusement more than anything else. So if you can do that, that would be super helpful. Once again, thanks to Mick for the tip earlier, and thanks especially to Sarcastic Monkey for his tip and his chatting and support during the stream as well. It's been most helpful. Right, folks, I'm away. I will see you next week. Ta-ta for now.